and therefores that Thomas does from Scott Petrie. And it reads, whereas the Senate of Pennsylvania is always pleased to recognize those individuals who contribute in a meaningful way towards the well-being of their communities and its Commonwealth. Whereas Chief Michael B. Pilla Jr. began his lauded, whereas Chief Michael B. Pilla is being lauded upon his retirement from the Northampton Township Police Department, concluding more than 43 years of dedicated service to law enforcement. And whereas affectionately known to his families and friends as Barry, Chief Pilla served this country with honor and distinction as a member of the United States Army. He is a graduate of the Bucks County Community College and the Thomas Edison State College. Chief Pilla also completed the Federal Bureau of Investigation, Law Enforcement, Executive Development Association Police Management Program, that's a mouthful, at Princeton University. The Northwestern University School of Police Staff and Command and the Police Executive and Advanced Police Executive Development Police Management Programs at the Pennsylvania State University. He served as a patrol officer with Middletown Township Police Department for 3 years, before beginning his career with the Northampton Township Police Department in 1976 as a patrol officer. Chief Pilla rose through the ranks to serve as youth aid investigator, detective, lieutenant, before becoming named as chief in 1994. Whereas since his enlistment as chief, he faithfully endeavored to preserve and protect the health, safety, and welfare of his fellow citizens. In the finest spirit of public service, he demonstrated exemplary knowledge, ability and integrity in carrying out his many responsibilities, and earned a deep respect and gratitude for his tireless devotion to duty. Now, therefore, the Senate of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania congratulates Chief Michael B. Pilla Jr. upon his well-earned retirement and affirmatively states that he served Northampton Township Police and the community at large with distinction, offers best wishes for his rewarding future, and directs that a copy of this document, sponsored by Senator Robert M. Tomlinson and Senator Charles T. McElhenney, be transmitted to Chief Michael Pilla. Congratulations.
After the last guy detective contract, I'm lucky. I don't even put in for expenses anymore myself. But seriously, if we did issue plaques or citations, Chief, you'd certainly get one. I didn't realize this was supposed to be a roast. Actually, I'm glad Ray McHugh, our controller, has at least armed me a little bit. I was speaking with him today, and he said, "All right, are you going down to that dinner for luncheon for Chief Pilla?" I said, "Give him my best. Tell him, point out that I knew him when he worked, when he was a detective." And that's, I hear a couple of groans, but I think as the chief executive officer of my shop, and remembering the days when back a long time ago when I tried a lot of cases and thought of myself as working hard, it's sometimes a little less apparent when, we're at the top of the ladder and responsible for everything that goes on. The work that gets done isn't as apparent. But on a serious note, let me say that the work that gets done by avoiding things happening, the work that gets done by seeing to it, a very bright guy I learned from the Pennsylvania Senate, by seeing over the horizon, by looking 5-10 years out, by taking the steps you need to take to make sure that your organization is well prepared, is properly trained, is run professionally, doesn't manifest itself on any given day on anybody being able to point to any particular thing. But one of the reasons I absolutely wanted to be here today, the times when the chief and I have dealt with each other, aside from a specific crisis that's happening right now, it's been that the chief's looking out over the horizon. And I can tell you, there's no greater tribute that I could pay to any police chief, that when our office deals with the Northampton Police Department, we know that the officers are going to be professional, that they're going to have done their job efficiently, that that the case that we're getting is going to be well prepared, and we're going to have the kind of professional interaction we expect to have. And that starts at the top. So, Chief, we'll miss you, but you can be justly proud of running this operation the way it ought to be run, and you certainly leave behind you a legacy of excellence. And we certainly, working from a prosecutor's end, we appreciate that a great deal.
All right, thank you. I think what we're going to do now is break for lunch, and then we'll continue on with our medium well roast after that. Okay, we'll try and keep it clean. I know there's some prior folks that work with the chief that have things that are probably R-rated that will try and protect their image. All right, please enjoy lunch.
You've just been a joy to work with, and we bonded over Italian food. When I first met Chief Pilla, I brought him Italian Easter pie that first year that I was there, and we were great after that. You've always been so helpful and kind to me, and I just want to tell you on behalf of our whole community and the Board of Supervisors, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much.
If you didn't hear that, the chief just wanted to make sure there was still going to get cooking. Next, we got George Pilla+, one of our board members, like to come up and speak. George.
Didn't know I was going to be invited up here. I was going to save all those things for a time when we could get away ourselves, and you and Fran and Pam and I could get away and chat, and of course just pick up the tab again. We're always good at that. We really were. I had the great fortune to be around when we had to pick a chief to replace Bill Feeney. And we looked and found Barry there, saying that he was ready to be chief. We took our time, we had deliberations, we sat down, we asked him to come in, chat with the board, and tell us, what do you see moving forward for the police department? And he said, well, we'll cut back, we'll do this, we don't need all these guys, it's bloated. We take care of all these items. Then, after he was named chief, he decided that was just fun, and he was going to change all that, and he did. I think it was probably about 94 you were named chief, so this was maybe 96 or 97, he started threatening to retire. Through at least 3 managers, there were daily visits where he would come in and continue to threaten those retirements. But we would never let him leave. We knew what we had, we knew we had the jam. I think we reached a point where we could see with him going down to Florida and the questions he started asking about, can he get a golf cart that could be the paddy wagon? And anybody who saw the pictures of some of the parades down in Florida, you know what I'm talking about. I know the current manager couldn't find it in the budget, to do something like that. Well, no, his name's Bob, not Bob. But we looked at it, and we were very fortunate. And I've been very fortunate to have been a time where Chief Pilla has taken the force in good hands from Bill Feeney and moved it along and continued. And I think as District Attorney Heckler has indicated, you knew you had a great force from Northampton. They were always professionally trained. They were always staying ahead. And you never really had to worry about, what was going on. And I guess that's probably why Barry did go away so often. But it's good. I think it was good because it gave some other people the opportunity to get some things done. And for all the years that I've been involved with Board of Supervisors, I have to say that the relationship has been one of a friend as well as a professional relationship. One that if I had questions, I could always go and talk to Barry, speak with him and have the confidence. And yet at the same time be in a position where we had, I think, a friendship that went beyond just the position of being a board member. So for that, I am grateful. I know that will continue. And wish you well in your retirement years. I don't know how Fran's going to be able to handle it. That'll be the difficult thing. But hopefully she'll be able to send you off somewhere to get some things done. But thank you for your years. Thank you for everything that you've done for the people of Northampton. Thank you, Barry.
Jim, or I think you'd like to say anything, or okay? All right. Next, I'd like to bring up Bob Pellegrino, Township Manager.
When I think of Chief Pilla, my first word is wow. And I know that might mean different things to different people in this room, but to me, it means 37 years of experience and leadership in this department, 21 as the chief. And some of the things that Barry's done during his tenure are things like implementing the school resource officer program, quality of life team, network news alert, traffic safety unit, and being a forerunner of our regional SWAT team. He was always involved in community outreach, community policing, always wanted to make contact between the police department and the residents. And internally, he was a foremost promoter of training his officers, and I think you've heard the district attorney and others acknowledge that by their professionalism. He always wanted to give officers the benefit of the doubt, and in that vein, he implemented a second layer of discipline and disciplinary process, which frankly drove our labor attorney crazy. And as he should have, he served as president of the Bucks County Chiefs of Police Association. But honestly, in the last few years, I think Barry's known most for infecting our police department computer system with viruses. One of the many emails and photos he sent from his Florida home, which he affectionately called Southern Command. Thank you for Barry. Thank you for that. As a manager, I can tell you he was a cost-conscious chief. He was always a friendly face in the administration building, always generous and kind to everyone he met. And for me, I was very grateful because we bonded as Italians as well, George. And he always did put the township first. And I couldn't have expected any more from a department manager. So to honor his leadership and his dedication to service, his friendship and his memory, there is a portrait hanging in the police department, along with the three prior chiefs. And we know that that will be a constant reminder of his leadership, friendship, and dedication. So on behalf of the board, community, and the administration, it's been a pleasure to work with you, Barry, and we wish you all, you and your family, the best in retirement and many, many years to come.
All right, the next person that's going to come up is someone that has known Barry for a long, long time. From the stories that I have heard, it sounds like they were a gang that rode through Bristol. There were stolen cars involved and everything else. Now that they've matured, they become very big people in our community. The next person coming up is going to be Magisterial District Frank Bronte. We're going to try to keep this a medium well roast PG.
We're in mixed company. Barry. Yesterday I got a frantic call from Mike. He wanted to make sure I was coming to Barry's funeral. his retirement. And he said, we might need to liven it up a little bit because there's going to be some dignitaries there. You know how they have a tendency to be long-winded and say nice, flowery, pearly things about people. So I said, I would come for two reasons. I said, if you can assure me of two things. One is that Barry is really retired. And the second is that he's going to be there and we're not going to have to look at a video of him down at the villages, at the pool with a Speedo bathing suit on. Barry always had a problem with that baked potato and not knowing where it goes and everything. Barry and I, aside from his family, I'm probably the only person in this room that's known him that long. Probably the first time Barry met me, he probably didn't remember. I was recruited to play football as well as Barry was by Dick Benson, the head coach. And as a freshman rookie coming in, he introduced me to several of the players that are on the varsity team. And one of them was Barry. It was actually Barry, John Callahan, and Dave Nelson. I still remember these guys because they were all big guys. So I was impressed. And the reason why he didn't remember that is because I wasn't around Bishop Egan too long after that. Father Wilfred, who was a disciplinarian, he recruited me for this covert opportunity that the Archdiocese wanted to infiltrate the public schools with Catholic kids. So, under the guise of being expelled for some criminal activity, I went to public school. But I was fortunate, but the bad part is I had to forego my football career in order to do that. But I thought it was a small price to pay. So I was actually the first undercover person in the school districts, and that was back in 1963. So in 65 or 64, I came back, and I couldn't play football, but I followed the team very closely, and I followed Barry and the rest of the guys. I remember the one year he threw for 1,500 yards and 12 touchdowns. Oh, wait, that was Pancho was here. No, it was 1,000 yards rushing and 8 touchdowns, right? No, that was Jack Lyons. So you see, things have really changed because even back then nobody knew what Barry was doing. So in his 20-some years as chief, nobody knew what he was doing. But we actually bonded together after I came back from my tour of duty in the public schools, and we had girlfriends that lived around the corner from each other up at Twin Oaks, so it was actually 3 of us together. I felt like I was on the football team because it was Barry and Dave Nelson and myself. And we had these cute Twin Oaks girls over there, Fran, it was long before your time. So anyway, Dave and Barry, they had the sense of finding another girlfriend, and I stayed with mine. I've been married to her now for 43 years. So, but like I said, I always followed Barry's career, and in '66 he graduated, but shortly before that I was recruited again by Father Wilfred. He said I had done such a great job in the middle school that he wanted me to go to Woodrow Wilson. And he said, I'll make up the reason why we're doing this. And he said, we're going to just say you were detrimental to the student body. He said, that'll cover everything. So I went to Wilson, went into service, Barry went into service. We kind of connected again later on. Barry was a police officer in Middletown. I was a police officer in Bristol Borough. And, you know, we would see each other in passing and talk about the old days. Then I became chief of police, and Barry became a follower, so he became the chief of police too. So we had some pretty good trips together, working together as chiefs of police, and back around 98 or so, we were both looking pretty bad, so we needed to lose a little bit of weight. So I was on the Atkins diet, so Barry said, I'm going on the Atkins diet too. So he did a great job and lost a lot of weight, and I'm glad to see it's still working for him. We traveled around a lot as chiefs of police, went to a lot of meetings together. We infected a lot of the younger guys. Pat Priori was one of them. We tried to get him to understand the way things should really be done, because, you know, yes, we weren't the chiefs, the president of the chiefs, but we knew everything. So, especially Barry, he was good at that. So we went on a lot of conferences together. I think the first one we went on was to Orlando. Remember where you and I, we were recruited by the Orlando Municipal Police down there. We were on a search and rescue mission in the Orlando Convention Center. I don't know if you've ever been in there, but it's this huge convention center. And we were with one of our fellow chiefs, Arnie Kyleline, who many people thought couldn't find his way around a police station anyway, but anyway, he was with us. So we're walking through the exhibits and everything, and this guy takes a header, has a heart attack. So all of a sudden the police are directing people, and we're going, and we take about 25 yards down, we turn around, where's Arnie at? Right? So we were recruited to find Arnie Kyleline, and we still haven't found him. So if anybody knows where he is, let us know. But that's so. Then we went to Charlotte for the Chiefs Convention. We shared a room, and it had 2 beds, of course. The true Barry always comes out when we're at these things. You know, and Fran knows he's a heck of a flirt. You know, he's always flirting with the girls. Well, we're in this restaurant waiting to be seated, and all of a sudden this girl hauls off and kicks him. Now to this day he blames it because I told her that he was a bad man. And but anyway, you know, Barry's a great guy, and I love sharing these stories with him. You know, I wish I'd known him a lot longer than that, because all the times that we've been together, he's been a great friend, and a lot of fun to be. Everybody knows he's a lot of fun to be with. You know, and I'm glad to see he's finally making a move, because for the last couple of years, no job was mentioned around county, you know, without his name being attached to it. Oh, Barry's going here, you know, high-paying job where you don't have to do anything. That's what Barry wanted. Matter of fact, at the table here, he's trying to take a shot at Judge Burns or Judge Benz, and he says, so what do you judges? What do you work about? An hour and a half a week? I said, no. I said, Barry, I think I'm up to 3.5 hours now. And I said, well, why don't you think about running? He says, no, it's too many hours. So Barry, it's been a great run with you, man. I wouldn't have changed anything. You're a great guy, buddy.
Thank you, Frank. Bob, you want to say anything about your brother? No. Now, one of our officers, Steve Kingston, who is actually Barry's daytime body double. He wanted to say something, but now he's changed his mind. All right. Don matters? You want to say anything, Don? This is another family friend and co-worker from Barry's from back in his Middletown days.
Good afternoon. I went on Middletown in 1965, and Chief Shook sent me to the Philadelphia Academy for training. And when I got done my training, after 3 months, I come back to Middletown, and the chief called me in the office and says, whatever you learn down there, forget about it, we're going to do it my way. So then Barry came on, and the chief thought he was punishing me, so he put Barry under my wing and trained. And well, I tried real hard, and Barry then left for other personal reasons. And I was having a second floor bedrooms and bath built in my house. And his dad was a plumber and heater, installation guy. So I had his dad come over to do it. Well, Barry came over to help him. I'm still patching leaks. That's why he became a chief. So he stayed out for a couple of years, and then I can remember him telling me, one day, Dad, I gotta be a cop. So he tried to come back to Middletown and shook he wanted nothing to do with it. But he didn't write no tickets. So then Bill Feeney hired him instead. There's no violations in Northampton, everybody's law abiding. Okay? So me and my wife have known Barry and Fran for probably 40-some years, I guess, at least. And they would come over to the house on a Saturday night, and we'd be sitting there playing cards and talking. And then, as I said, Barry made his flirtatious remarks to my wife. And one night, my wife got up from the table, went halfway up the stairs, and leaned over the rail and said, "Come on, Barry." But he crawled under the table. Yeah. So he's not really it. Anyway, he says he goes to Northampton, he gets hired, becomes a patrolman, becomes a detective, moves up the rank, becomes chief. Before he became chief, we'd have lunch every once in a while. He would always say to me, I had moved up to the district attorney's office, the county detective. And we would go out to lunch and he'd say, "Why don't you become a chief of police in Bucks County?" And Barry, let me tell you something. There's not enough money in Bucks County for me to become a chief. Well, he became chief. About 6 months later, we're out for lunch. He says, "You know what? You're right." And I saw him a couple of years later at Frank McKenna's retirement down in Middletown. And he says, "Every morning I get up and those words haunt me. There ain't enough money in Bucks County to become a chief." So, congratulations. You don't have to worry about that. Oh, this part about that no more. You're done. Come in the Legion, have a beer. Huh? Thanks.
All righty. Anybody else like to get up and say anything? If not, we're going to go forward with Chief. Can you please come up? We have a couple things for you. First, on behalf of the men and women of the organization, we'd like to present you with this plaque. It is it's our arm patch along with the badges that you worn through the ranks, starting in 1976 when you began your career with us, through the end. So we'd like you to present you with that. Thank you. Pete, where did Pete go? Pete stepped out for a minute. Joe, there's Pete. Another presentation here from the PBA. The Vice President of PBA, Pete Stark, has a presentation to make you.
Good. It's going to be very brief. I mean, I thought about trying to do a roast and came up with a bunch of things, but yeah, I still have another 82 hours and 15 minutes underneath me, so I'm going to make this very brief. On behalf of the Northampton Township Police Benevolent Association, you've been a loyal member and a good brother for 37 years. President, too. We'd like to present you with your first retired badge.
Lindsay wants to get up and talk. Lindsay said she was going to sing, but now she's changing her mind. I don't know why. So it's up to you now. It's been a tough, we've been very nice. Very nice. It's been only well, medium well.
20 rounds with someone.
There you go. Well, it's up to you now. We expect you to
Say something nice.
nice, very nice and professional. No tears.
No tears.
No tears.
Thank you, Michael. Well, first of all, I'd like to thank all of you for coming. I can certainly go around to each table and do about 5 minutes on each one of you, but I'll pass with that. Instead, what I would really like to do is recognize some people that have already either come up here or I'm grateful they didn't come up here. Don Mather, who was up here just a minute ago, was my training officer. I came out of the military and was lucky enough to get hired in this profession, a profession which I think is the greatest profession that one could ever have. And I was overjoyed to be linked up with Don. He was a great guy. He was unlike the older guys, although he was an older guy. He was a good family man, and I immediately fell in love with Betty, who would decorate for every holiday. So I learned how to decorate for the holidays, and I also learned how to put toys together, because every Christmas he would recruit everybody to his house to put toys together for his family, which is large. But we had a great time together, and I respect him, and I'm so happy that he's here. There was another guy that I worked with in Middletown, but he's not here. That's Tony Maniscola. Tony and his brother Terry. Tony was one of the first people I rode with when I began this profession. And I learned a couple of things about Tony. Tony was a canine officer. He had also worked in Philadelphia. He got hit by a car and was almost killed. And he suffered a lot of frontal lobe damage, I believe, because that accounted for a lot of his activities. Tony had a dog that could not go past Greenwood Dairies without a handle. He always ate ice cream. So Tony's not here, but I thought he was going to. As I look around the room, there's just so many things that bring back memories. Kenny Barnes worked with us for many years. Kenny and I shared a guy named Chuck Halen, who is not with us any longer, who probably is responsible for me not having hair. Just a wonderful guy who, I guess, wanted to go back to visit the Lord, so he's not with us anymore. But Kenny and I could probably close this room, make this room close if we started telling stories about different things when we were all detectives. Frank has already came up here and pretty much blistered my marriage, so not much to care about that. I promised some people that I would not mention them, but you know, what the hell, I'm in charge, so. When I became chief, I had a secretary named Ann Bateman. Ann Bateman's husband had been the chief of police in Newtown-Barrow, and Ann said to me, I'm 70 years old, I'm getting the hell out of here, so go find somebody. I'll help you, but I won't pick it. It's okay, Ann. I wanted her to stay, but she quit. Well, I talked to a few people, we interviewed some people, and I ended up with a superstar, in my opinion, Karen Cesaro. Karen has been with me since I was chief and has pulled me away from the window because I used to stick my head out the window and scream and go, what in the hell was I thinking when I took this job? I had a great job. I was a detective. I was making all kinds of overtime. Nobody bothered me. I wasn't happy until I took the job. She would peel me back in and say, I'd all be better. And then along came Jennifer Wyan, who's also seated at the same table. Jennifer was a 18-year-old dispatcher who came to work with us and then left for a while, and then she came back. And she's been my administrative assistant now for a number of years. So between Karen and Jennifer and Mike and my look-alike, they make up my staff, and they make my job, or they made my job, so easy, because they were always there, they were loyal, they were good people, and they worked very hard to make our operation work. So I don't want to short anybody by not mentioning them. I mean, the board has been very cooperative. I've worked with some great department heads, and I feel like we have the best set of department heads in the county. But I'd be really remiss if I didn't mention the real reason that we're successful. Our department is extremely successful for that gang that's sitting over there. Some of my guys that are here, it's a small representation of the 43 of us, but they are, in my opinion, the finest group of police officers you can put together. We don't always love each other, we don't always get along, and we don't always agree. But when it comes time to put the pedal to the metal, they're there. And I have the deepest respect for them, and I wish nothing but the best for them and for everybody else in this profession. So I guess I probably ran a little longer than I wanted to, and I left out my favorites, my wife, my brave daughter, my favorite sister-in-law, and my brother. We have become extremely close because I can't do anything and he can fix everything. My brother and I have become very close friends. My sister-in-law, Floyd, said, is my favorite sister-in-law. She's also my only sister-in-law. She's my favorite. And I spent a lot of time together convincing and doing dumb things, trying to keep our kids straight. But without them, I mean, what do we have left? So when it came time to make this decision, I felt completely confident that I was making the right one. I wanted to dedicate myself to my family, and of course my wife has already suggested that I find another job. If anybody needs help, give me a call. I work cheap, and I guess that's pretty much it.